And welcome to our weekly IG Live. Today I'm going to be talking to author Rita Bhandari, and she is the author of the Ace Compeers series, and I was lucky enough to get to review the first book before and just got a copy of the next book, hello there, which is The Mystery of Race. So as you can see, it's a diverse group of friends, and they are going to find out. And so we're going to talk to her about why this is so important to talk to children about this and what approach that she has used in order to do so. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Good. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you for
How
joining us.
Thank
It's nice to actually get to meet you because, like I said, I've gotten to review your books and talk to you before, but this is the first time we've actually talked live, so this is really fun. And
it's lovely meeting you.
I'm not sure if I pronounced your name correctly. Could you say it for us? Bhandari. Okay.
Rita Bhandari.
Well, thank you for joining us. And I was just showing off some copies of your books. I'll hold up again the most recent one, The Mystery of Race. And why don't we just jump in and you can introduce yourself and then tell us what was your journey to becoming an author? And especially maybe you can give us a little background on the Ace Compeers series.
Definitely. It's funny because I never really thought of myself as a writer. I'm an elementary school teacher, and I want my students to be fully seen and included. I educated myself on topics on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I earned a few certificates along the way. For example, a professional diversity and inclusion certificate from Cornell University. I got involved in promoting equity and inclusion within my school and school board. And I just decided, well, I started thinking about my own experiences, and I've also experienced some ignorance, microaggressions, racism. I'm biracial. I'm half French Canadian, half South Asian. And I went to a school that was predominantly white. So I started thinking about how, if kids were explicitly taught about race, the truth about race, what a difference that would make. So I saw a gap in the market for books, and especially books that were not only explicitly teaching this subject, but also books that are engaging for children, and that could be used as a high quality teaching tool. So that's how the idea of the Ace Compeers series was born, really. It wasn't, I'm going to be an author someday. It was really, oh, wow, I really want children to know this. And I think it's really important to understand race and everything that goes along with it at a young age. My book is for ages 8 and up. And the series is cross-curricular. It's an educational book series, and it teaches, like I said, children about race and racism. But not only that, I wanted children to understand that race isn't a concrete solo entity in and of itself. It's connected. It's connected to many things like science, geography, history, social studies, mental health, and more. So I wanted them to understand that there's a connection there. And that's why I decided to go on this journey writing the Ace Compeers. It challenges norms of traditional books. And it models more of an inclusive, anti-racist, inquiry-based type of learning. I'm doing a lot of teacher talk right now because I'm passionate about it. And I think it also provides them a safe and engaging space to explore these complex topics and encourage critical thinking.
One, I love that this came about because you saw a need, and instead of just complaining about it, you were like, well, I'm going to write that book. I'm going to fill that gap. That's amazing that you did that. And I do have to say is really engaging. I'll just show a little bit of some of the interior. I actually, before this got started, I actually had to pull my 10-year-old son out of the room. I was like, I'm going to be doing a live. You can't be in here. But he was like, oh, just let me read a few more pages. Because this one we got a little while ago. And so I actually hadn't given it to him to read yet. And I was having to pull him off of it to like, no, just go so I can do my live. You can read it later, I promise. So it is really engaging. The characters are really cute and fun. And, but like you said, it really brings in so many topics. I mean, it's like an educator's dream. But why, I mean, you touched on this a little bit, but can you say a little bit more about why it's so important to talk to kids about race? Because surprisingly, this is something that's controversial, but also talk a little bit about, even for parents or teachers that want to talk to kids about race, sometimes they never had that conversation when they were kids, and so they're not really sure how to go about it, especially how to be age appropriate. And so I'm sure that's something you were really thoughtful. How did you think through that as far as, okay, what are we gonna talk about, and how am I gonna approach this so that it does fit into that age group that you talked about?
Yeah. I'll go back to your comment about how now it's something that's controversial. Actually, as I was writing, I had the manuscript completed for the second book, but as I was writing, the whole banned books phenomenon started happening, and I decided to include it within my illustrations because I'll just show you an example of what we have here. So I've got a library with chained books and a broken, so if you can see here, the library says super top secret library. The books are all chained together, and then they unlock one of the books. And I wanted that to illustrate that, you know, children are naturally curious and they're going to want to find out the answers to their questions. They're especially curious about themselves, about people in general, and they have a lot of questions. So I just wanted to touch on that before I went into anything else. So why is it important to talk to kids about race? Well, many children and adults, like you mentioned, were never taught any of this, and they don't know concrete facts about skin color and race. And it's important to teach this because it affects society as a whole and people's everyday experiences. For example, we know now from research that children learn about race and racism at a very young age. And they can even express racial prejudice by the age of 4. So in order to undo the damage or to unlearn it, you have to have explicit conversations, not just subtly mentioning things here or there, or especially not shying away from these conversations, so that students and children understand that it's not taboo. Because if you dismiss or ignore questions on the topic, it can make children believe that it's a taboo topic, or they might even internalize the idea that their racial identity is negative, or they could even uphold the notion that white is the default or it's the norm, or even worse, superior. So the book aims to ignite the reader's natural curiosity about race, and to make them more comfortable asking questions about this topic, like the Compeers do in my book.
And I love how you have, I mean, like you said, that you brought up I love the imagery of the chained books. That's really wonderful. And also that the children themselves are so diverse. And like you said, it's very inquiry based. It encourages their curiosity, because like you said, a lot of times those conversations get shut down. I think there's a lot of misconception that talking about race somehow makes you racist, and so or just parents, like I said, not, you know, being afraid of saying the wrong thing, and yet that is, like you said, is giving these false messages to children. What do you think? And I know, like, your book is really all about dismantling these misconceptions. What do you think some are the main ones that you've run across in your teaching and that you wanted to address in these books?
Well, the first one is in the first book, the fact that skin tone is an indicator of anything else other than skin tone itself. You know, what I mean by that is, yes, it's true that our physical characteristics get passed down by our ancestors, our grandparents, and our parents. But skin tone is, scientifically speaking, just like eye color or height. It's a physical characteristic, and it's no indication of anything other than that. It's no indication of personality type, of behavior, intelligence, worth, or anything else. The misconception that skin tone sets us apart from everyone else is false. And in fact, I wanted to make it clear in my book that two people with light beige skin can be more genetically different than a person with light beige skin and a person with dark brown skin. So in a simpler way, there can be more similar genes in a white and black person than two white people. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of adults don't know that. They think that there's maybe a huge genetic difference, and that's not the case. And another misconception is that racial categories that we use today are based on something that's concrete, a scientific fact, for example. And there's a reason. So my characters actually struggle to find the true definition of race, and there's a reason for that. That's because there's no concrete definition to race. They discover that race was made up. It's a social construct. And even though that's true, there are false meanings placed upon skin tone, and it had severe implications, as we all know. And it's affected Black, Indigenous people, people of color for generations. It continues to do so. So I make it clear that although it's a made up and it's a social construct, the lived experiences, we can't ignore that. And we can't ignore the fact that it's also, it ties into your identity, into your community, into history, into your everyday experience. So although race shouldn't matter, it doesn't mean that race does not matter.
I like the way you say that. Yeah, I mean, definitely. One of the things that I really appreciate about your books is that they take a very scientific approach, that you're really, like you said, you're being very explicit and talking about race and kind of breaking it down. Why did you choose to do kind of that scientific approach? Although, like I said, it also brings, I mean, as you mentioned, it brings in geography and history, but it's a very fact-based book. Although, I mean, like you said, it kind of gets out of the norms. I mean, it's a little hard to classify the book because of the same, it's nonfiction, and yet you have these fictional characters, which I love. I mean, I think that's a great blend because it really helps keep kids engaged and helped keep it from being like a really dry read. It isn't, it's very engaging. But well, why the scientific approach?
I wanted to start with the foundation. Basically, I feel like the first book looks at the science, and the second book is mainly the history. But I want to start with the science of skin color because it really contributed to racism in the right now, but as well as in the past. There was a huge misconception that, like I mentioned, that there's some kind of genetic inferiority that's there, and there were eugenics and scientific racism that kind of justified all of the horrible things, the enslavement of people, treating people less than others, taking away children. There's a lot there, and a huge way of justifying that in the past was to have pseudoscientific evidence, obviously isn't true, to justify that, oh, there is a superior race and therefore we can treat the other races this way. So if you start from there, there's really no hierarchy here. There's no hierarchy at all. So mistreating others and all the horrible things that have happened, that there's no justification.
I wanted to just take a step back and talk about the title. Or just the title of the series, the Ace Compeers. Can you, I know you have a great explanation about this, but can you talk a little about what Compeers means and why you chose that as a way to describe the kids in the book?
Yeah, I decided to pick that word because it means of equal status or rank or a peer. So I thought, especially the fact that of equal status, I thought that was important to have. And it's also a word that isn't commonly used. So it might be a word that sticks with kids and they might remember it better that way. So it's kind of like the characters are kind of taking on a role of, they're not exactly superheroes, but they're, you know, they're they're a team trying to discover things and make the
Yeah, I
world a
love
better
that. Like you
place.
said, it does kind of stick in your head a little bit more because it is a little unusual, and yet it has the word peers in it. So even if you're not sure what compeers means, I mean, you kind of get the meaning of the title. And what kind of reaction have you gotten from either from students or from parents, educators?
uh, Positive reactions all around, and I'm extremely grateful for it. Um, like I said, I wasn't. I just went into it thinking, okay, you know what? I'll just go for it. I'll try and make something that's engaging, something that will maybe have students and children relate to the characters, have it more meaningful, and teach things that are really important for them to understand. And I thought, well, what could help parents and educators? Well, why don't I just include the main ideas or a summary, or include some additional information that might help the parent or educator teach it, and some discussion questions along there. So I think it's a little bit, it's unique in the sense that there aren't many books that provide the additional resources. Yeah, I think so far we have a lot of positive reviews. Um, Schools throughout in Canada and in the United
Just
States
showing
have purchased
some of the,
my
like here you
book,
have the main
and
ideas
they're
and discussion questions, all this at the back, really helpful information. And
showing.
was there anything about the process of either writing the books or publishing, promoting, you know, kind of the business side of it? I mean, here you started off with this idea. Was there anything that surprised you about that whole process of going from having the idea, putting it on paper, getting that out there into the world and making sure people knew about it?
Yes, definitely. um, like I've mentioned, I'm an elementary school teacher. I have no marketing experience, and it's been eye-opening because I wasn't really social media savvy. And that's a huge thing right now. It's a bit of a struggle to try to get the word out there, and the marketing world is still something that I've learned a lot over the past 2 years, but it's still a bit of a mystery to me. There's a lot there that I still need to learn, but I just keep going, and I'm trying my best to get the word out, and I'm grateful for opportunities like these. So it's definitely something that was a bit surprising because a lot of people are unaware of the existence of my book series. So just getting the word
Yeah,
out
because
is
I
probably the most
imagine once they
difficult thing.
know about it, I mean, there's so much to love about these books. But we appreciate you and what you're doing, and so we are very happy to help amplify that. And hopefully, people can find it. They can go to the link in your bio, find out about more about the books. And just to wrap up, because we're coming up on time, can you just give us a hint? I know the first book is talking about the science. Second book is more about the history. What's coming next in the series? Do you have envisioned like how many books are going to be in the series, or is that still kind of in development?
It's still in development. The first two books, I guess my main focus was, where do our ideas of race and racism come from? How were they developed over time, and how do they impact us today? But how do we use that information to stop these false interpretations from reoccurring? So to do this, I want to tackle our understanding of stereotypes, biases, and racism. So that's where I'm headed with the next book of the series. So I guess overall, the first book would be more of a scientific approach to skin tone. Second book is the history. And the third is, what do we do with it? It's more of the social studies
I love it.
aspect
Well,
to
I
it.
can't
Okay.
wait till it comes out. I'm really excited about the new one that's just come out. If you haven't checked out the series, please do so. They're really wonderful books. And again, that's the Ace Compeers series. It's a great way to talk to kids about race. If you're not sure how to do it, these books will help you do that and get into some really great discussion. So thank you for joining us. All right.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for